Okay, I think we have a news reporter here. Are you recording? Okay. But we will have Zoom, so at the start of the meeting, I have to announce if there's any members voting from afar, and everybody's here. I ask that you say your name and your address when you start to speak, just so that I can get into the minutes. Tonight we have an NOI, an RDA, an order of conditions to revise, and a utilities notification letter. And that will be relatively quick, and then we'll get to 530 Glendale. So the first one, I want to open the hearing for the NOI at 374A Wilbraham Road, DEP number 1730239. The applicant Al Joyce for Bedrock LLC proposes to construct a single-family home on this lot and perform work related to single-family home construction, with work proposed in buffer zones to perform buffer zones to wetland. I'm a direct abutter, so I'm going to recuse and pass the chair to Tom.
And I'm going to move to continue this to July meeting.
I'll second.
What's the date?
All in
17th.
favor? Aye.
Aye.
I guess I can continue. No, you should say recused. Okay. Okay, the hearing is closed. Okay, we're going to open a hearing for 23 Walnut Road for an RDA for retaining wall restoration. Can you put a map up?
Where are they? Oh, you can come up.
Are the Sullivans here? Yeah, okay. The owners,
Which one is it?
Sean Sullivan and Famita, is it Basher?
Sure.
Yep.
Proposed to reconstruct 2 deteriorating retaining walls on the property. The single-family home on the parcel was built in 1966 and is very near the Scantic River. I think the closest point is like 35 feet.
From the deck, yeah.
Yeah. With a 100-foot riverfront area and a 100-foot wetlands buffer extending completely over the house, and even the no disturb zone coming very close at one point. There was a site visit to the parcel, so we'll hear from Greg, Ted, or Tom.
I didn't go.
Yeah, the commission visited this lot, and the applicant showed us a couple areas that they wanted to do some work. There's some previous retaining wall there that wants to be re-landscaped and re-retained, right?
Correct.
And that was outside of the 25-foot.
Yeah.
So
That's the side
Yeah.
of the yard.
we don't really have too much to say about that, but there's another area right in front of his deck that is very close. I'm not sure if you have pictures.
Which one is there?
Starting.
Those there.
This one?
Yep.
Yeah.
So I actually did a measurement, and it was over 25 feet.
It was over 25.
Okay.
The wall is.
Actually, even the gazebo right to the edge was like 26 feet.
Okay,
Great.
great.
Just my eyelash.
All right. There are 3 relevant regulations.
Yeah, that's the wall in the back next to the gazebo.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, that's bad shape.
Right. I mean, so if you're looking at that, the water's right behind you. Correct.
Okay. Some homes in the riverfront are exempt. Under the.
Did you want to retire?
Later. I have it.
Oh, you have it?
Under the Mass Wetland Protection Act, existing structures defined as those in existence prior to August 7th, 1996, which is when the Riverfront Act was passed, such as single-family homes and accessory uses and structures, are generally exempt from the Rivers Protection Act under the regulations under 1058-6. Maintenance of existing landscaping is also exempt in most cases as a minor activity if it meets the requirements of 10 CMR, 310 CMR 1022B1 or 2, which includes stone walls subject to type, size, and location have been determined by DEP to be unlikely to cause impacts to any of the protected interest under the Wetland Protection Act if such landscaping tasks and home improvements are conducted solely in the buffer zones of wetland resource areas and in riverfront areas, which is where you are. Under policy 99-1, the same minor activities in other wetland resource areas are not exempt. Further, work that increases the protection of the areas and interests protected under the Wetlands Protection Act can be permitted if adequate conditions can be determined to protect those areas. Within a confined area along the Scantic riverfront area of this property, this project proposes to eliminate potential life and property hazards by stabilization of 2 existing retaining walls within the 100-foot riverfront area. Any discussion?
I just want to say that is shoring up his septic tank too.
Yeah, I would say there's real danger
This
to
one
the
right
river
here.
from that.
That one.
Yeah, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah,
Yeah.
right. Yes, that one is. Right. The leach field is on the other side off the sidewall.
But the septic tank is right there.
Behind that wall.
All right.
And we do plan to replace the wood with, like stone or block, so it won't,
Last a little longer.
yeah, it'll last longer and it won't have the chemicals that the,
Good. And that falls under the even more regulations. So that's good. That gives you more exemptions. Next time around, just in case.
And you did say your contractor said he could do the work from the top
yeah,
without
well, that's what he said. I haven't,
bringing any machinery down below.
Okay. I have proposed special conditions. Does everybody have a copy?
Yep.
Okay. At a minimum, the 50-foot wide area measured from the mean annual high water line, which is essentially the top where it goes to your lawn, of undisturbed vegetation along the riverfront resource area must be maintained to the greatest extent practicable. And obviously, in that 35-foot area, you can't be 50 feet. Just be as far away as you safely can work. The limit of work line, that's a part of the regulations, so I have to read it that way. The limit of work line must be as close to the project as practically manageable. To the extent possible, all activities must be more than 50 feet from the mean annual high water line within the riverfront area bank or from bordering vegetated wetland, whichever is farther. The commission recognizes that at one section of the wall, this distance is not possible, requiring best efforts as sufficient. A silt barrier must be installed at the limit of work as far as practicable from the river, mean annual high water line and bank. The commission strongly recommends non-entrenched above ground silt barriers such as a double staked end-to-end hay bales backed by wattles to further protect the riverfront. So you know what that means? You take the hay bales like that and you stick posts down through them at both ends.
right, we'll get this in writing so we can show it to the.
Yeah, it'll be right here. Okay. The Hampden Conservation Commission must be notified for an inspection by email after the silt barrier installation at least 48 hours before commencement of work. The inspecting commission member should be provided with emergency contact phone and email numbers for the project contractor and the owners. That's a standard condition. The project should utilize locally sourced topsoil as a planting medium if required, which must contain no extraneous matter or debris and no invasive weeds, particularly including Japanese knotweed. Gravel must be similarly free from debris and invasives. Soil, sand piles, and other work materials must be outside the 100-foot riparian resource area, which means essentially on your driveway, unless they are actively being used. All soil or sand piles must be securely covered and surrounded by barriers if they remain overnight or longer than 24 hours. Hampden Conservation Commissioners must be able to visit the site as necessary to inspect the site for storm damage or other riverfront protection issues while the project is in progress and until all soil is stabilized. That's another standard. So do you have any questions?
I don't think so.
Any discussion?
So pretty much the staging area has to be on your driveway.
But
Yeah, even if your driveway is within the 100 feet, you can put it on your driveway. That's considered a safe
How
location.
about the end of that grassy area? They,
Out by the road.
Only if they can be 50 feet out.
all the,
If it's out by the road, that's.
yeah.
Yes.
Do we have more pictures? If you go backwards.
Yeah, I don't have any pictures of like where the shed is, but that would be definitely well
Yeah.
beyond 50
Where,
feet.
yeah, where your car was.
Here, there, they could stage stuff.
All right. To the,
It's not there, but that's,
in
Up
that
in
area,
there,
right
right
in that area, right there.
yeah.
Yeah,
That,
Second one down.
second one.
And then kind of
Right.
like, if you're standing there, behind you is still some more grass.
Right.
Ah, okay.
And the road.
So the numbers are in here. So you want, here's 2 copies, so you can have one and have an extra. But you will also get a copy of the actual permit.
Great, thank you.
All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
any opposed?
Any opposed? Was a unanimous vote?
I have the papers to sign.
Okay.
make 2 copies. We have one.
Rather than running down to the office and copying. That's, I got the rest of it here.
Oh, is there another one to sign?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, while we're waiting, I will introduce you to Wenda Luff. She is our newly appointed member to the commission. She has lots and lots and lots and lots of experience, so we're very lucky. Do you want to say anything, Wenda?
Well, hopefully I can just help the town out, make good decisions.
Good. She lived in Granby for a long time and was a commission member there. And were you chair there?
No, I avoided that.
This one.
Why don't you mention that she can't vote on this?
And she can't vote on the 530 Glendale issue because she wasn't here for the whole thing, but she can vote on all of the other things that come up.
Here you go. It's all signed. You're done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Nice to see you.
Thanks.
Okay, I'll close the hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
We still have Boulder Hill.
yep, I'm here. Boulder Hill.
Boulder Hill Construction, their extension permit
Oh, okay. I'm just thinking of it as
for 24
Bedrock.
Ridge Road.
He said, yeah. Oh, okay, yes. All right, I'm going to
And
propose a vote for the addendum to the extension of the order of conditions, which was requested for Lot 24 Ridge Road Boulder Construction. There's a map if you want to put it up. Not sure if we need it or not. The commission had voted at the last meeting to grant the extension, but to hold it until our normally required permanent boundary markers are installed. Since it had already been 6 years, this would be the second extension. Yep, that's it. Since the permit was originally granted. However, in the interim, in looking at the old papers, I discovered that a second page was missing from the conditions. And on those conditions, it said that the monuments had to be installed set upon completion of the site grading, which is way into the project, and our requirements for the actual monuments has changed in those 6 years. So I'm proposing an updated revision. The permanent limit of work monuments as shown on the plan named above and in the order, and according to the Hampden Conservation Commission specification number NDZ01, shall be set immediately upon completion of initial site grading, which allows them to get the height, but they shouldn't be changing it right where those monuments go. And recorded on said plans using GPS coordinates for each. After the monuments are installed and prior to inspection by the Conservation Commission, a copy of the above plans, including the monument coordinates, must be submitted to the Conservation Commission to be kept on file at the Conservation Commission office. Any additions, revisions?
So my question is, I'm just asking, the permanent markers won't be installed until there's a buyer to the property.
Yeah, they won't be installed until they grade the site.
That's why they're not there.
Right.
So there's
Well,
no
he didn't think he had,
no.
he didn't think he had to do it until he sold the property and they were building, but if they start grading the site, they've got to immediately install them.
I got that.
Okay, and this doesn't require any paperwork except inclusion
Now,
in
do
the
we
minutes.
check the wetlands to see if they've changed in 6 years?
No, we haven't. He had one wetlands. It's a river. It's a
Okay.
stream,
Okay.
which we permitted as permanent. So,
And this, everyone, had already signed this back in, when it was originally done.
yeah, so we'll just get attached and entered in our minutes.
Right, November.
Okay. And Bonnie will put it in the file, in their file, so it doesn't get missed.
Right.
And then we send them a copy.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We will close that hearing. All in favor?
All right.
Okay, and last but not least of the small issues, a utility pole installation notification.
Another one?
Or, yeah, we're winding down. But
Yeah.
for one pole and associated reconfiguration within the riverfront and 100-foot buffer to BVW. If you could put this one up, I think it's only one pole, but it's important. And the 100-foot buffer to BVW on East Long Meadow Road.
Julie knows?
Yeah. Okay, go back to the map.
Is it down?
Mhm. Okay, I wanted to point out that the road itself runs right through the marsh. And the pole will be on the side, but some of our normal requirements for for setting the dirt and stuff back aren't really going to work for this site.
So is that like right at the East Long Meadow border?
Yeah, the dotted line going vertical there, that's the border.
Oh, I'm looking at. But that
That's
says
Carmody, that's Carmody right there.
Figure out where this is, I have no idea.
Oh, all right, I'm sorry. I was thinking Mill Road.
Town would be to the
I got it.
right,
I know.
Yeah.
and then
Yeah,
that's East
I know.
Long Meadow.
Yeah, to the left of the large dotted line is East Long Meadow, to the right is us.
Yeah, okay, I'm all right. I was
Okay,
upside down.
so the question is there anything that you feel we need to add for special conditions? Or do you think our normal conditions will
Yeah,
take care of this?
just one pole, but.
And they do it all the time. I have no.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, so, and I wanted to mention that coming up soon, in July, will be, the Eastbrook Main Street Bridge project, which is going to be a big project to change the culvert, that comes out from Laughing Brook over to the river and, makes it essentially into a bridge. It's going to make it, much more stable. And the Scantic Valley Water Project System Improvements and Water Main Expansion, which involves extending the water service. Just so you know, they're coming. All right. Now we will reopen the continued hearing for 530 Glendale. Oh, thank you. Hi, okay. See you. Oh, we can share one. They can share one and let's give them one to pass around. See over here, Ted?
No,
Yeah.
he can't.
Not that I haven't looked at it.
Yeah, you know what? I need this space here. Work.
Before we begin, may I just say that Nick is joining us via Zoom, but he's like limited by time. So any technical questions could we address first? Since he's here till 7:30.
Okay,
But he has a other meeting to attend, so
I will try.
Thank you.
So it's a long list.
thank you.
Working out of his car, huh?
Okay, I reopen the continued hearing for 530 Glendale Agri-Solar proposal. DEP file number WE 1730238, parcels 29016 and 000 and 005. Owner is Jonathan Guinapero, applicant is Rory Walker for Glendale Development LLC. And the representative is Nick Sasandola, who is on Zoom. Okay, the proposal is for a 4.95 milliwatt. Is it still that?
9-2.
92. AC ground mounted solar system where the interior array areas will be maintained as pasture fields for grazing sheep, cattle, and chickens managed by Ledge Valley Farm. The project is subject to Mass DEP stormwater standards. There are no portions of the parcel currently identified as estimated habitat of rare wildlife, but the parcel borders a large stream identified as a cold water fishery resource. 3 tributary intermittent streams and a perennial stream, unidentified stream, bordering and running through the western portion of the parcel, as well as surrounding bordering vegetated wetlands to those streams. The property is in R6 residential zoning district with agricultural use in the more distant past and an equestrian trotting facility in the late 1980s. Anticipated construction would be in 2025, with the facility expected to be energized in 2026 and continued for 25 plus years. It would be interconnected to existing power structures on Glendale Road. I'm sorry, I'm allergic to the building. The minute I walk in, my voice goes. Okay, so far, Last year in 23, we created an abbreviated notice of resource area delineation, which didn't take an abbreviated amount of time. And an order of resource area delineation was issued. A notice of intent was submitted in November of 23. We've had a detailed presentation and explanation of the NOI and stormwater report, a peer review performed by Ty and Bond and clarified at a couple of meetings. The proponents submitted additional information and revisions. Ty and Bond performed a further second evaluation and review of the revised submissions with comments from the commission and others. The commission subsequently submitted a list of items that were needed to complete the review, which were submitted to Rory and Nick, and a proposed extension of the peer review contract for those last items. The proposed fees for that is quite high. All right, so tonight I want to review and discuss the Ty and Bond proposal for the extra work. Sign an agreement to continue the hearing to a second June meeting after the end of this meeting. That's for later. But it would be on a new date than we had originally continued to, so we need a new order. Get a look at any new documents or submissions from the proponents, which just came in the last day or so. So just a glance. Discuss the status of concerns and issues submitted in letters by residents. Briefly look at the comments on the draft conditions for the project, which I'm proposing. Review the issues and comments planned for referral to the planning board. And that will be that. So the first thing is the peer review proposal. There were 7 things that I asked for. And no, 11 things that I asked for. And the estimated cost is $11,000, which is high. We asked for a breakout of the costs, and it's hard to pick out of here something that's easy to leave out. The most expensive item is actually writing up the report and presenting it. I had asked what would happen if we left out issue 1 and 6, which, do you want me to read all the issues? Yes. Okay. Here's what they said they will do. A Ty and Bond wetland scientist will visit the site. You can put them up. I have them.
Oh, you have them up.
To review the recent delineation of bordering vegetated wetlands on the south side of the driveway. That's where that new firefighting box is going to go. By Goddard Consultant, and provide a technical review of the delineation.
Which one is it?
It should be NOI peer review letter.
Right there?
Nope.
It's the
nope.
bottom one, isn't it?
Extend. Wait, go down. Extend peer review, that one. All right, so these start at the second half of the page.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep.
They will review the delineation of the sub-watershed, which may consist of abutting properties for the design of the access road, wetland crossing structure, and culvert. So that's the one on the north edge of the property. They will review the culvert design for that access road, including dimensions and orientation, flow created and or limited by the access road support structure over the culvert, and flow off the overpass access crossing road surface, including sufficiency of the surfacing to withstand erosion. They will review the revised summary of riverfront area performance standards and provide a final summary of resource area impacts. They will review the shade analysis relative to hydrological impacts of tree removal, including in near the rear forested area. We had asked them to comment on thermal impacts as that's part of the regulation, but they said they can't. They're not able to assess that. They will opine on the recent clarifications regarding installation of underground utility conduits and whether they will affect water flow to the BVW. They will provide a statement regarding panel orientations in relation to topography and provide recommendations for the prevention of erosion relative to the panel orientation. They will review supplemental information provided to clarify sediment forebase sizing and maintenance planning requirements. They will review the revised agricultural plan details regarding grass species selection, growth surface conditions and requirements for added medium and provide recommendations as appropriate. They will review the narrative for the riverfront restoration, including but not limited to adequacy of plantings and removals, soil disturbance, anti-sediment protections during restoration, and provide recommendations as appropriate. They will review and provide commentary on new stormwater information concerning peak flows versus basins, comment on suggestions by Gary Weiner, review adequacy of the system under conditions of frozen soil. The above listed tasks will be summarized in a findings letter issued by the commission. They'll review one round of responses from the applicant and they will attend one virtual meeting. I am considering proposing skipping number 1, which is reviewing the delineation on the south side of the driveway. I don't think we have any reason to think it's not any good. Which saves $1,000. I'm considering taking out the opining on the installation of underground utility conduits and whether they will affect water flow to BVW. Any comments? Do we need that or not?
Time Bond put this in here. They're obviously concerned about it.
No, we asked for a specific list. I asked for a specific list. I basically went through all of our meeting notes and I looked for all the things that we hadn't yet had Time Bond look at. And I gave them that list. So this was in there. I believe it came back from Gary as a possible concern. Yeah, it's in the comments that we submitted to the proponents after the first peer review. It's attached. We stuck them all together. So you do have that. If not, you can ask Bonnie for it. She can send it. Okay. So, anybody want to?
This number 6, this opinion, I mean, would they be basing it on all the information to date, or would they be going out to the site?
No, they'd just be looking at what they know of the underground, underlying ledge and stuff like that and figuring out whether they think it's going to interfere.
Okay.
It's not a very big line. It's not like when you have a 36 inch, culvert or something. It's
What's the thing?
It's 8 inches.
The boring holes differ 4 to 8 inches, and there's 2 of them, and a smaller one for communications.
They're side by side or above. So side by side.
So basically.
So
one
it's basically
side to
8
side
inches.
If it's flow. Yeah, okay.
So can we forego that one?
So we would add something to the.
That
order of
saves them
conditions.
$500. What?
We would add something to the order of conditions to, if something happens, to address it at that point.
Yeah, sure.
All right, and you were fine with foregoing the delineation on the south of the,
Yeah, I am.
The driveway, yeah.
okay.
I am.
Okay,
Maybe one last question, and I won't interrupt you again. If you felt this was important time here, I'm just curious why you're taking them off.
I didn't. Actually, I didn't.
Oh.
I included it because Gary had mentioned it. No, not necessarily. In fact, he didn't say it was important. He said you might want to think about it. Because in some cases, it makes a difference. Yeah, I agree. On the other hand, we aren't buddies with these guys, but we do have an obligation to make they're required by law to make payments to the consultant. We're required by law to try and keep it within a rational frame. So this is our effort to keep it within a rational frame.
I think they said it was going to you.
No, I don't think so. I think they're not happy with us most of the time. Okay. And the other one I wanted to propose doing without is the narrative for the riverfront restoration being reviewed. I feel like we have
Yeah.
10.
10.
I think we have people on the commission who are able to review that.
Okay, yeah.
You think so? Tom would be one of the people who would get stuck to it.
What do you think?
Wenda, what do you think? You certainly could provide
You've
consultation.
got that kind of background.
Yeah, I think we could, as a team, we could figure it out.
Okay, so that's 1,000. 500 and 800. Yep.
I have a question. That's okay. Just develop to mention names. I'm a little confused as to why you want to take off the delineation for the driveway with the fire tank, considering there were notes that the road was wide and unpermitted. Would that in fact, could that potentially affect BBW?
The BBW was delineated with the driveway the way it is now.
Oh, okay.
When it was delineated after this part of the project was started, it's not in the ORAD.
Okay.
Because that they didn't know that they were going to have to do anything in that area, and they kind of left it unmapped right against that south edge. So we asked them to map that. We looked at it; it agreed with what we thought was reasonable. But if we were going to have them out there, we figured we'd just have them look at it. But at whatever it is, $500, it seems like an awful lot to walk over there and look at it.
Doesn't seem like a lot considering how much they stand to make, but that's obviously the commission's call.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the biggest costs are actually the writing the report and appearing at a meeting. Okay. All in favor?
Aye. Check.
Objections?
Oh.
Nick?
Judy, I have one comment to make.
Yes.
Could you please ask Ty and Bond to to give you an idea when that letter or when they will be complete those items? So will we have enough time to review those comments, provide our own response, and possibly update the plan to reflect any comments prior to the next meeting?
Okay. All right, so that's 2,300 off the price.
I agree to pay with whatever the commission deems appropriate. My just ask is, do I have enough time to respond to these comments? Based on the timeline we discussed, I just want to make sure that everything that you guys have or need to review.
If you can't, we'd have to continue into July, but we won't have Ted then.
Understood.
So that's going to be tough because now we have 5 members. We need a vote of 6 members. We need a vote of 4 to pass.
There's 5 eligible members here.
Well, we have a 6th.
We have a 6th.
Oh, you have a state guy. Yeah.
He hasn't been participating in most of these, so we can't vote. So we already lose 1 vote.
But she can't vote either.
And Wenda can't vote because you have to have been here for the bulk of the meetings. You
Can't
can
come
have,
in as a ringer.
you can miss one meeting and follow up with watching the tapes and stuff, but not all.
May I ask a question? Does three, if Ted is not here in July, does three make a quorum?
What we would have to count on is Andrew's planning on getting reduced to being an associate, which doesn't count him in the quorum. So then we could do it with three. But it's a complicated thing. So, we can continue to July if we need to, but I'd rather not.
Understood.
Okay.
And it depends on when.
It was originally 11,000 and we took off 2,300.
Not money, what numbers?
Oh,
1, 6,
6, and 10. All right, so we need to vote on accepting this peer review proposal. It's a contract. Somebody want to make a motion?
Make a motion to accept it.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, unanimous. So I messed up my copy. Do you have a copy?
I will,
You know what I'll do? Well, give me one quick. Thank you. Six,
Fifth.
fifth?
Oh, I won't be here on the 5th.
No, I'm talking about today.
Oh, yeah,
today's the 5th, yeah.
Yes.
sorry. That's what
Judy, you will ask Time Bond to update that with the new values and I'll give you guys a check for that, whatever that.
Yeah, they said just slash out the ones we don't want.
Got it.
And so we took out 1,
6 and 10.
6,
And 10.
and 10, and I have to initial them.
We don't have.
Yeah, 6 and 10.
We don't have any. No.
So Bonnie will send this to them tomorrow. Or I'll scan it at home if you want me to.
Honey, I will send you,
I
and
can do it.
I will give you a tracking number.
Okay, they will start as soon as we confirm the check is in, so. All right,
So,
And this is all signed, right?
yes.
Ready.
All right, and we need to sign an agreement to continue the hearing to a second June meeting on a new date because we discovered the next meeting was scheduled to be on the 19th of June, which is Juneteenth. It's a federal holiday.
I believe Rory discovered that.
Yeah, and the town hall will be closed. So we're continuing. The next, every alternate Wednesday is taken by the planning board essentially. So we're continuing
It's on a Tuesday.
the Tuesday,
25th.
which is the 25th.
I already sent you that.
We'll sign it. Did I sign it?
Hmm?
Did I sign that extension?
This one? Yeah, you'll have to sign it.
No matter.
Yeah, just sign it, return, she'll staple them together. Okay, we need to vote on this continuation from to June 25th from this meeting.
So move.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Uh-huh.
I'm sorry, I just had a question, just on the scope of the proposal. So are they actually going on the north side?
Ted sign it?
To go on the abutment property?
Yes, the was it number 2? It's that they will look at the delineation for the access road, which may consist of abutting properties. And the belief is that looking at the pictures, there's water over there. So they're going to ask to go on those properties. If the abutters are here, you can grant permission now and I can tell them it's been granted.
I know. It's an old one.
Which property, which parcel is yours? Yeah, there's two that are at that abutters.
New one.
Okay. They won't be doing your whole parcel. They'll just be doing the part that's relevant to the drainage. Okay. Okay,
Gonna take a picture like last time?
Yes, I saw one over there. I will take a picture. I'll come see.
I'm trying to figure out what I need to do while Nick is on the line there.
How long is Nick
So
on?
they're gonna flag the wetlands
7:30.
over there?
They're going to go over there and flag the wetlands.
Okay.
And then they're going to use that information to help figure out if the culvert is big enough and what issues might.
Yeah, water flow.
We were worried. I personally was worried about water flow that might come down from there and undermine that. There's like a block
A wall.
wall. Yeah.
And then somebody's gonna survey it possibly?
No, they won't survey. They'll just delineate. Okay. Oh, Nick, we had asked for separate calculations for the chain link fencing and the 100-foot buffer to BVW item 11. And I couldn't find those in your responses. I'm sure they're in there somewhere. I went through this.
So, can you repeat that?
Number 11, the revised summary of the proposed alterations to jurisdictional wetland resources and buffer zones. And we asked for separate calculations for the regrowth of mowed and disturbed BVW and for active restoration, and also for the feet of chain link fencing in the BVW and 100-foot buffer to the bank. I
So
couldn't.
the areas are on the planting plan, but I can tableize that for you.
Okay.
And we submitted an updated WPA 3 form
I
that
did
has
look
the
at that, but
resource
that's just
area,
riverfront though.
because that's the only quantifiable resource area that's being disturbed. But I can I'll put everything in an updated table and email that over to you. So like I said, most of it's on the plans in different areas. The planting plan has the areas of mowed BVW that are going to go back to being vegetated as they should be, and no longer being mowed. And the disturbance to the riverfront area, it's all within 100 to 200 feet of the riverfront zone, and that's detailed on the WPA form, the updated form. And I'll get you a table that clearly displays all that stuff. Do you want that on a plan, or you just want that in a document?
A document's fine.
Okay. So we'll make sure to get that over to you early next week.
Okay. The stuff that you submitted for planned tree removal, I didn't see anything for outside the fence. Is there no tree removal outside the fence?
So within the limit of disturbance, all the trees are proposed to be cut. And on the easterly side of the development site, the wooded area, we'll call that, that 12-acre area, within the footprint of the solar array, we're going to be cutting and pulling those stumps. And then outside of the solar array footprint in the buffer zone, the proposal, as detailed on the revised plans, is to just cut those trees. So we have less ground disturbance within that 25 to say 50 to 75 foot buffer zone to the BVW in that area where it's primarily wooded.
So you're
So that's
even the stumps.
Yeah,
correct.
And I didn't
Outside of the solar array footprint.
outside the limit of work. Outside the
No,
chain.
no, no. No, there's no cutting or tree removal or trimming outside of the proposed limit of work.
Okay, so this area that you're talking about leaving the stumps, that's inside the chain link and limit of work?
Can I show you? I think that.
Yes, could you do that?
Yes, ma'am. Allow me
Correct.
just-
It's detailed on the erosion control plan. I have a separate hatched area that identifies that the trees are only to be cut and not the stumps pulled.
Yeah,
Oh, I
which one?
This one right here. So again, this is the call out.
You can put up that.
I will put it up on.
Oh, okay.
or if
This, okay,
you want
see?
this or- I will.
Do you have
Yeah.
the map on here?
Go on, Lisa.
This is
In the
zero.
in the area of the basins, we're going to have to pull the stumps because we're doing grading work in there. So,
Mhm.
but other than the basins and the solar array footprint, anywhere within that buffer zone is just tree cutting. And then that will be maintained within the fence line and limit of disturbance.
Be cutting only trees to be cut with stumps left.
So, yeah.
Does Rory have that to put up for everybody to look at?
Yeah, he's gonna put it up.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to figure out where the buffer zone is that's inside the fence. Or outside the fence, no, inside the fence.
I have to share with you, right?
This, it's maybe the host. There's the little buttons. That's Nick. That's.
Wrong one.
Oh,
Am I on the big screen?
No,
No.
wait a minute, where are we?
The wrong Nick.
Rory,
Rory.
where am I? I am looking at Nick and no.
All I can say is I'm glad it's not me that has to manage this.
Not like I haven't talked to you 100 times. Did you get it? Yeah, says host.
Got it. Got it. I will share my screen right now.
I'm jumping around in the items to be reviewed because Nick has to leave, so I want to make sure questions directed to him can get done before he has to go.
Looks like he's in his car.
Unfortunately,
You need to buy a little motorhome that you can have an office in.
right?
It's selling one.
B 3.0, Rory. I believe it's that one right there. So if you zoom in by basin 2, you can kind of see the note, and we can see the buffer zone line. I think that's what Judy was looking for. I believe it's an orange line. So if you zoom in a little bit in that area, the red line is the 25-foot no disturb zone. And then you'll see there's a lot going on right there. I apologize. It's a busy plan. But the
So all
orange
those
line,
triangles are those trees?
those aren't specifically trees. That's just a hatch that's denoting that area is to only have trees cut and the stumps left intact.
Okay. Is there any other areas like that?
If you move to the south on that side, all along the wetland line, those
Okay.
triangles, that other area is also going to be treated in that fashion. And we felt that that was the best use of that area, and it could be practically done to, have less land disturbance. It's going to work out better with overall construction, having more stabilized area up against the within the buffer zone. So that's something we were hoping to include. Yes.
So there's no vegetation management and no tree cutting outside the chain link fence. Is that true?
Correct.
Yes.
Where's the chain link fence?
The chain link fence is essentially out at the limit of work. On most of the maps, it's a purple line. On this one,
I can really zoom in so you can see it. Like,
it's there, but it's really hard to see.
here's your chain link fence.
So it's not a fence that goes around the entire.
Yes, it is.
Yeah,
It goes around the limit of work is all the area where they could do work except in the BVWs, which they're not allowed to go in. So the limit of work is essentially, some people call it the limit of disturbance. It's the same thing. And the chain link is going to go right along that line.
Is there chain link in the middle, in between those? That stops the wildlife from going through?
See over to the right where there's
Up north.
a purple line?
North.
That's part of it.
North, if we go up.
And you see all those little.
North.
Wasn't there talk of a huge stockade across the abutters property?
Oh, that's a separate consideration.
So that's
Correct. Yeah, we are proposing that the northerly fence line be a solid fence to improve screening. But yeah, the fence containing the project as required has to be a 7-foot high fence for safety purposes, because this is a electrical facility.
So you can see where it goes along the road there, and then it goes over that little bump and back down.
So there's no way to put a gate there on both sides and allow the wildlife to go through the middle?
No, there's a gate for traveling over on the left-hand side.
Correct, yes. It's mostly to contain the animals that will be, grazing within these areas. But I think we could possibly look at, satisfying that request and opening it up and gating off both sides. I can check with Rory, but and see if that would comply with the safety codes that we have to comply with for it being an energy generating area. But we can look into that.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, yes?
I just got a curiosity. Sorry. Cheryl Stewart, how many animals are there? And how much?
We next, the meeting on June 17th, the two specific items that we're going to take up are the riverfront restoration plan. The Goddard Consulting guy is going to come to give us all those details, and the agricultural plan with a representative, Caleb from Agrivoltaics, will also be here to answer all those questions.
25th, not the 17th.
The 25th, I'm sorry. So those two items have been delayed because that's when those representatives could be here to explain. We should also, during that meeting, hopefully have a peer review by Ty and Bond of this last tranche of materials, and talk about the current uses of the property and mitigation of prior violations, because that stuff's still there. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm kind of
address
concerned about the acreage of the limit of work. What is it? How many acres would that be?
Approximately 21 acres. Nick can
21?
Between 20, I don't want to get, between 20 and 21 acres is my understanding.
Correct. Yeah, that's approximately that much with about 14 to 15 acres of clearing. So, there's a lot of existing open field areas, but the total project area for the array, the stormwater basins, the driveway, it's about 20 acres.
Okay. And if you're not used to looking at these maps, the green areas in the center that have a green outline, those are delineated wetlands, so they cannot go into those wetlands. They built basically building all the way around them, but not in them. And the red line is the no disturb zone of 25 feet. That's the minimum buffer allowable.
And so for the tree cover, the solar footprint and the basin you mentioned were taking the roots up, right? How many acres is that?
Nick is about 14 acres, but again, of that, again, there's an area where we're only cutting the trees down. There's an area where I am removing the stumps and grading. So I can't tell you offhand, but the whole area that we're cleaning is per Nick is about 14 acres.
So it's 14 acres, but we don't know the part that's left just as stumps isn't separated out acre wise.
Right.
I could
I can break that down in the table I end up doing with all the numbers and everything, if that helps.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Nick? Okay, I will have some more questions. Let's see. Okay, just a note, the phasing plan for the construction isn't on 3.0, it's on 3.1.
Tell me. All right.
We'll get that updated, but we did create a phasing plan as discussed at the last meeting. I can go over that if you'd like, or we can discuss that later on, but I did think it was important to highlight areas, how we were going to progress through the site, how we were going to cut the trees and manage, erosion during construction. And, the best way to do that is to, have a dedicated plan with how you're going to build the site out. So, essentially phase one is, mobilizing and doing minimal tree clearing in the northerly and southerly parts of the site to the east side of the track area in the south. So there's a little bit of woods in the northwest corner. Half of that area where the solar field's going. Oh, other side.
Sorry.
No problem. So half that area is wooded and half of that area is existing field cover. So, we're going to cut those trees. There's another little knoll of trees to the south as you enter the property that needs to be cut. And then there's some trees on the slope to the east of the gravel track that also need to be cut. So that's going to be the first area that the tree clearing crews will cut and site prep, along with, getting that gravel road that leads to the north and to the west of the site installed. Once those areas are prepped, we will have them seeded as soon as possible to promote ground cover growth in that first phase. And then after the driveway is, roughed in and, mostly constructed, the tree clearing crews will move to the westerly part of the site, which is about 7 acres or so in that westerly part of the site, where that area would be cut, cleared. Some of the trees will have the stumps left. Some of the area will have it stumps pulled. be a little bit of minor grading that occurs. There's 2 stormwater basins that need to be roughed in those areas, and then get that area stabilized as soon as possible. And then the third area for clearing and working on is the area that's already primarily grass cover, which is the track area. There's a few trees that exist. They're almost kind of like landscaping trees, a few sporadic trees that are planted and exist throughout that large field area. So then that area will be cleared, prepped, and have the basin installed in there. We're keeping that as the third area because it's the most natural in comparison to what the field would likely be at that point after it's installed. So that's the plan for that. And then we would move to phase 4, which would be the installation of the fire water tank. And then phase 5 would be close out and, install the racking and get all the system components in. But, this is mostly a clearing and, restabilization phasing, which I think is important to have in a large construction project like this.
Okay, I just sent you the proposed conditions today.
Yes, sir.
But you'll notice there's going to have to be a phase 0, which will have to do with start of the work meetings and installing the erosion barriers and the permanent monuments and all that sort of stuff. There's a lot in there.
100%, Judy. And what I do when we, before we go to construction, I make a construction plan set that goes through all those items. And, I make sure to include that all those from that construction plan set. I do have to apologize. I have to run into this next meeting. It shouldn't be very long, so I will jump back on as soon as we are done.
Okay, thank you, Nick. See, are there any more? Boy, we're getting weird stuff here.
Right, he hasn't totally turned it off yet.
You could probably mute him.
Okay.
Yeah, probably mute him.
Yeah, mute him.
Whichever the host.
Okay.
Nothing good.
Next, I wanted to go over the specific concerns that have been voiced by residents, just so they get more direct answers than presuming it from things we've said. So there's quite a few. Dave and Mary Nadeau had 3 issues. One is delineation of the abutters property and when that was going to happen. So that should happen very soon. Are the Nadeaus here? Okay. I would expect them to show up in the next week or so because they need to try and get it done before the 26th. And they have to do calculations afterwards. So I would think it would be very soon. They have to get the signed contract, and then we have to notify them when the check clears from the treasurer for the peer review costs. Okay. And some folks have asked why it wasn't done earlier in the ANRAD. And the issue is that when you do an ANRAD, you do it for a parcel. So it only included the current parcel and all of the delineations and details on that. They did walk off the property somewhat to check where the rivers were so they could get the riverfront measurements that extended into the property, but they didn't do any other delineations outside the property. So this is a specific area we've asked for because of that northern access road and culvert. But that's staying inside the parcel is standard. They're not allowed to go onto any other property without finding. The ones they were able to go onto usually is because there's somebody that they can see on the property and they can ask them, can we come on and measure? Otherwise, they measure the riverfronts from the maps. Okay. there's a lot of concern about the 25-foot no disturb zone that's intruded on by the access road on the north side. The first thing I can say is if that road was straight, it would cross the BVW itself and two no disturb zones. So when I asked for an informal opinion, most of the members of the commission expressed a desire to have them go around the wetlands. I think that's why. I'm very, very concerned about it bumping up against the property line for the neighbors. And especially I'm concerned about the fact that the planning board has a 50-foot no disturb zone that's from the parcel line. I'll note that our buffers are one kind of no disturb zone. The setbacks are all zoning conditions, and they all refer to the parcel line itself, not to the line of wetlands. So in this particular case, they run up against each other. So we are violating a sacrosanct area if we approve that for the planning board. In fact, there's a 100-foot setback, but they save 50 feet as a sacrosanct setback area. So is it possible to consider straightening that?
Anything is possible. It would just cause a disturbance to the commission. And again, we were directed based on the commission's opinion to do it as such, and like, we can reevaluate that. That's not a direction that I've ever understood the commission wished us to take.
How wide is the wetland there? Can they put a bridge that would not impact the wetland if they went straight?
A bridge instead of a culvert?
Judy, I'm not an engineer, so I would request that I take this question to Nick and I get back to you with a comment.
Okay.
Oh.
Yeah, there were at least 3 people that had this as a major concern, including John Matthews, who's been on the planning board and knows how they feel about that. So I am concerned about it. One thing that I should note is that access roadways are eligible for limited project status, which means the riverfront access roadways for solar are eligible for limited project status, which means they're not, we are allowed to waive normal performance standards in order to get it where we think is better. If we feel we can condition it to be reasonable to the wetlands. And in truth, I think I'd rather lose a little bit of those wetlands and get it away from the neighbors, if we can figure out a way to do it.
But if you have a solid wall there, a solid fence wall anyhow.
With trees.
But if it was your backyard, it's right up against the property line.
We were just talking about having gates there so that the wildlife could go through. So, that wouldn't be a solid wall, but the wildlife would be able to still use
that part that goes out, the straight part at the very top essentially has an up and down section that's going to be made with cinder block, right? Or some kind of construction block. And then the road will go over it and the culvert will go through it.
Correct. There's a detail of it.
Judy, can I ask a question?
Yes.
So, did I hear this right? Did the commission recommended that they go up to my property line?
There are the standard rule when people are planning is to go to every extent they have to get around the wetlands and not go through the wetlands.
Okay.
So in that case, that's what they've done. For our purposes, that's preferable. For your purposes and the planning board purposes, it's not. So we just have to decide how to deal with there's no perfect way. We either have to sacrifice some wetlands.
How about they turn down what they want to put in there?
Well, if they can't get to that array and back, It's about a third to a half of the project, right? And what?
Extremely large for that area.
Yeah.
So why don't we just make them scale it down?
Well, because unfortunately regulations aren't like that. The regulations that we operate under don't say we can just say no, or you have to have a tiny one, or it says we can do everything possible to keep them out of the wetlands.
Is what this does.
Which is what this does. It doesn't say we have anything to say about the scale.
Well, we're just offering them that option.
Yeah.
My one comment as the commission is that this road will be very infrequently traveled upon. So for
After construction.
99% of the life of the system, that road is accessed twice a year. I am of the opinion I would be more than happy to have solar in my backyard. I've asked that question quite a lot.
Yeah, buy our house for it.
One at a time, please.
Thank you. So remember that there is a planning board process. The planning board, it's not unusual that something goes to the planning board and they just say no. It can't be that close to the setback, and they will send it back straight, and we just have to figure out how to deal with it. That's not unusual at all that we get plans back with revisions. Our job is just to do the wetland part, but if we can foresee that and get it settled as much as possible, I'm just looking to see if there's any other solutions. Yes, Mr. Nato.
Where I'm a little confused is that there's a very clear, specific town bylaw dealing with 25-foot no disturb that's been honored by the commission pretty consistently. So
That's true.
I don't understand why back and forth. And why
because there's a state law that says you got to stay out of that green part.
Understood.
And the only way to stay out of the green part is to go through the red part. So there is no meeting all the regulations. So the rule in that case to us is to do the best we can for the wetlands within the rules. And the rules also conflict. So
what about the bylaw?
The bylaw is a wetlands bylaw. It conflicts with our own rules.
But they're not mutually exclusive. I mean, the bylaw seems to stand on its own, or it has been. And now we're considering waiving.
Well, in any case, we are in the no disturb zone. It's a question of whether we go into the wetlands in order to avoid the planning board's setback. Our setback is that red line from the wetlands, and they're already in it to get across. But we are not allowed to say just no, you can't do it unless there is no possible alternative that's reasonable. If they go across the wetlands and they mitigate it somewhere else, that fits the wetlands rules. So we can't allow that. It's just they've tried to avoid it because that's supposed to be the first thing they try. So I'm looking for the better solution. Greg, Tom?
I mean, I agree with what you said. We're trying to limit the impact to the wetland. At the same time, we have to respect the abutters 50-foot ruling. So it's between a rock and a hard place of where you put this road.
Yeah. I mean, to me, it's looking like a bridge over it somehow is another option. But
you got trucks going across this, still got Tammy Chafee, 276 Ames Road. You got trucks going across that. It's still going to get into the wetlands. You put a bridge across wetlands. You could caught between a rock and a hard spot where you're not supposed to be in the wetlands and you're up against the property butters.
Yeah, it's
getting rid of it.
But,
Yeah.
Getting rid of it.
So
we're not allowed to do that.
One at a time.
also, why is, excuse me, that's not our problem, that's their problem. It's not our problem if his plan doesn't comply with what our rules and our regulations and our standards and our precedents are.
It's their problem. They have to dance.
At
You
zero,
stop dancing.
If it's going to be rejected because it's up against the setback, it's the planning board that has to reject it. We can't reject it for that cause. We can only reject it for not avoiding the wetlands.
So you're, excuse me, but Tammy Chafee, 276 Ames Road. But you're saying, well, maybe we can put a bridge across. You're backing into them all the time.
no,
No, the regulation says that if it can't be conditioned otherwise, and an otherwise condition would be to cross it with a bridge.
if you had followed Zero Summers Road Solar, they've got a bridge over a brook and a unit much like this over into Minute Stream. And that was approved by Mass DEP. They're the ones that set the ruling on it, not us.
At the end of Potash Hill Lane.
Zero Summers Road, it's called, at the end of Potash.
Yeah.
There's a whole bridge across the brook.
Actually, they appealed after they left here because they thought we were too cruel.
And DEP.
And it turned out that DEP approved it. They made a lot more conditions than we had, but they approved an extra crossing. So we have to try and be as rational as we can and protect as much wetlands as we can, but you can't just say no, or we end up like Long Meadow did when they said no solars and the courts just overruled them.
Yeah, but,
Yeah.
My understanding is two out of the three committees have to approve the solar project? Water conservation.
No, we all have to approve it. But each of us has to approve it under our own set of rules. So we only protect the wetlands, and then it goes to the planning board and they say, well, under our rules, you got to do this. And then it goes to the select board essentially, and the inspector, the building inspector.
Building inspector also has to approve.
There's all these little sub people that have to approve. Plus, there are DEP, there's a water quality permit and an MPDES, which has to do with pollution. And they have to get all of those permits as well. Some of them come from DEP, some of them come from other groups.
The EPA. I think NIPTES is the EPA.
Everything we do here is not approved by the town per se. It goes to DEP to be approved.
Yeah.
We are a commission under the
So
DEP.
after, even if we did approve it, which we haven't yet, I mean, we have to still vote at the very end of, we do the best that we can, and then we vote on whether under those conditions, we think the wetlands can be protected within the regulations. So it's everything, you know, it's the government. It's all iffy. Everything is conditioned. And after, if we did that, it's still, DEP still has 10 days to reject that decision. So if DEP doesn't like where we put the bridge, yes, the Department of Environmental Protection is under the state, and basically we work under their regulations. So everything we do here is under their regulations. And if we approve it, it goes directly to them. At the same time, it's going to the planning board. And they have 10 days to reject it. And they can either say, no, it doesn't go in, or they can rewrite it. They can essentially go through this set of meetings all over again directly with the proponent and DEP. There are advantages and disadvantages to having that happen. Advantages is they often add extra rules. Disadvantages is they don't regard any local ordinances. So they could care less about our red line. That's a local bylaw. So they will ignore that red line. So that's a disadvantage. there aren't too many other things that we have that they would ignore. They'd probably ignore our permanent monuments. We have a local bylaw that requires them to mark all the wetlands so that later on, 10 years from now, somebody doesn't intrude into them when we've gone and set them aside.
Anything we decide, the proposer has their right to go to
You're always
DEP and
balancing it.
so.
So if you disapprove that, you're saying go to DEP?
Always.
If we disapprove it, it goes to them. If we approve it, it goes to them. Either way.
Yeah.
If we approve it, it's also true, I might as well tell you now, I was going to tell you next meeting, but 10 residents can get together and sign a petition that goes to DEP and says, we want you to re-review this. And that starts that process of re-review of looking for an override of some sort or another.
But be known, I don't know of any they've disapproved, so.
Other than
Usually they approve them with changes.
here straight across. Yeah.
Sometimes ones we like, sometimes ones we don't.
You have a question over your shoulder.
Yes.
You're still gonna encroach on it a little bit.
I wasn't looking for the commission.
Yeah, but-
I was just looking to have a project
gonna be-
designed.
But it pulls it away from the.
Bylaws.
If there's a 50 Yeah. I didn't know.
Okay. Well, we have rules from DEP that say don't go through the green.
Watched it.
And we have local rules that say don't go in the red line.
What within those guidelines?
Hmm?
So design the project within that structure.
Well,
Yeah.
so you're saying you think we should just say they can't have that upper area?
I don't know, I'm not an expert, I'm just saying.
I think if we say no to that, that it'll go to DEP and DEP will put it back in. That's honestly what I think.
Based on the fact that they approved the bridge and the culvert at the other project.
Yes?
No.
You done, Dave? Okay. I'm a little confused here because we're talking about, 50-foot minimum setback from the property line, but it's 100 feet. 50 feet is allowed to be selectively cleared for screening only. So I realize that may not be conservation, but to me, this plan's not compliant. So I'm not really sure what we're doing.
Well, like I said, that's a planning board issue. What John Matthews relayed to us was that the planning board considers that last 50 feet sacrosanct. And they're going to be pretty upset if we allow this to go to them with that in there. They know we can do what we want within our own rules, but being aware of that, I would like to respect it.
I guess I'm just confused because when I look at the plan, I need clarification. If it's 100 feet, the whole thing needs to be brought in.
That's a planning board rule. It's not a rule that we're operating under.
But you're gonna essentially approve a plan that's gonna come back to you and they're gonna say,
That's entirely possible. They could shrink it down to be within that 100 feet, but we can't.
So you can't tell them even though both boards are
No.
simultaneously.
We can't. We only can operate under the Department of Environmental Protection rules, regulations, and our local bylaws, and nothing else.
Okay, so jumping onto that, looking at other projects this town has approved and it's been talked about during this particular project, conservation's never allowed solar panels in that 200-foot riverfront. And I don't think they've ever allowed panels in the 100-foot BPW.
Most of the projects that have been proposed up to now haven't been in this complicated an area. Most of them have riverfront on one side, or one had a stream on one side and riverfront on the other. So then we're talking about a huge field with riverfront on one side where it's relatively easy to move the whole thing out.
Right now, how the plan is in that top northern corner, they're still in riverfront. I'm not even talking about the lake.
Yeah, but we can't say no to that part.
I understand that, but aren't you going to hold them to the same, I don't want to say standard, but what you made Borrego do, what they made them do at the landfill, make them accountable and follow the same guideline. That's what I just don't understand.
Well,
every piece of.
I know there's a subtle part of it that's kind of hard to understand. We can't force them to be outside the 200-foot
Well,
riverfront.
that's not what you guys have said all along.
We can ask them very strongly. We can encourage them. We can try to work out ways that they can. But we can't make them do any of it. We can only make them make an obvious effort and then mitigate it if they do. So if they went inside, then there's mitigation that has to be done. Means they have to save some other area somewhere.
So even though DEP would essentially back you up and say, yeah, we've had success in the past, keeping them out of riverfront, keeping them out of jurisdictional buffer zones.
We don't know if they will or
They
not.
will, because that was what was told in the Hampden Town minutes a couple years ago. And when I spoke to the gentleman at DEP, he wishes you guys were stronger. Not stronger, use us to your advantage.
I don't think this is a productive discussion. I really want to get through the rest of the people's letters, okay?
That's fine.
It will go to the planning board. The planning board has a 50-foot setback and a 100-foot setback. And it will go to DEP.
Great. Thank you for listening.
Okay. Okay, and the last item on Mr. Nadeau's letter was that he felt that we were too nice to the applicants and that we appeared to be in their favor. I'm not very good at explaining it, but I'm trying to tell you that none of these rules are absolute. All of these rules say if the project can't be adjusted to fall within the minimum rules, then you can reject it. So we're already looking at minimum rules. That most projects that are proposed are not proposed within minimum rules. They're proposed, as you said, like at the one on Mill Road, it was proposed outside all the riverfronts. DEP made them open up a little area in the middle that they thought looked like wetlands. But basically that was simple by comparison. That was all the power we had, and you can avoid essentially getting a lot of grief from the commission, the Conservation Commission, by avoiding those buffers, and a lot of projects do. But this project didn't.
Be nice if it did.
Okay, I don't think that any of us are fans of this plan. It's our job to keep it out of the riverfront, but it's not allowable that we say no if they've made major efforts to adjust. Okay, Darla and Edward Iavicoli had same questions about setbacks and solar bylaws. And all I can do is say that the solar bylaws are different than the parcel setbacks, and we can't enforce parcel setbacks, but the planning board can. They can just say no.
So it's up to the planning board to enforce the 100-foot solar bylaw, Hampden solar bylaws.
That says that there's not a 100-foot setback in the Hampden solar bylaws. There's a 100 feet from riverfront, 100 feet buffer from wetlands. There is no reference in any wetland regulations that has to do with parcel lines. It only has to do with how far things are away from the wetlands. So our focus is those streams in the middle, which, don't show on this map, but there are streams in the middle that have 100-foot buffers. And that red line that goes around the BVW. There is also a buffer that goes around the BVW, which is 100 feet, which they are on, but it's not a yes-no buffer. It's a buffer where they have to prove that nothing from where they are is going to go into the wetlands. And if they can sufficiently convince people that nothing will, then we don't have anything to say.
So Hampden solar bylaw, 7.16.
That's the Hampden solar bylaws is a zoning bylaw.
Which states 100 feet from each, 100-foot setback from each abutter.
Yeah, solar.
So you're telling me that.
So the solar bylaws are zoning bylaws, which means they come under the planning board.
So it is.
We don't have anything to do with zoning.
Right, so, okay, call me whatever you want, but if it's 100 feet, why 3 years ago have they not put in a plan that fits within the 100 feet?
Well, it's a small area and there are always exceptions that the planning board can accept.
It doesn't fit the amount of panels.
You're fighting with me about something I have no control over.
I'm just saying it makes no logical sense.
But you have to bring that up to the planning board.
I can ask them to see if they can get out of a setback just as a favor to the planning board, but I can't enforce any parcel related setbacks.
So they keep going back and forth with the plan and it's a waste of their time as much as it's a waste of.
Yeah, that's entirely possible. They may get thrown out or they may have to redesign the whole thing.
Yeah.
May I provide some clarification? It's important to see that it's from the edge of the module to the property line. That is what we are looking for. That's the one clarification I'd like to provide.
Can you repeat that?
So you're saying that the limit of work, it may be within the setback, but not the modules. Well, that's something for the planning board to decide. Anything that's inside the part that's not wetlands or wetland protection buffer, we don't have any say about. They could build a sky tower there. And as long as it's out of all the areas, and we can't prove that water will fall off of it into the wetlands, we can't do anything about it. That's the truth. That's what it comes down to. It's frustrating. Okay, they had another consideration about the battery storage system in the zoning bylaws. That's again in the zoning bylaws, not in our bylaws. But we have expressed serious concerns about the batteries being near the wetlands, and if there was a fire, for instance, what might ooze out of those into the wetlands. So that's a concern we are allowed to address. And we are sending a letter to the planning board that's noting many of these issues because we just want to make sure they pay attention to them. And we're saying to them, battery fires take a lot of water. There isn't a lot of water. They're not allowed to pump from the river. And sometimes things come out of them. And so we want them to look at that. They can regulate that. Yes, Wyndham.
As far as I know, you can't put a lithium fire out with water. I don't know what kind of chemical.
That's true. Everybody has said that, and I know our fire chief said that as well. But there is a condition under which the advice is to swamp it with water, essentially put so much water on it that the air is sealed off.
The water tank is also there if it gets outside and starts getting into the vegetation, and they can control it from the vegetation end.
So that it would have to be enough water to deprive it of air, and there's certainly not enough that amount of water there from anywhere. Yeah.
Two comments, Judy. The first with regard to spillage, you made a comment about a transformer and how it leaks.
Yeah, that's
a detail, but that same detail my assumption was for battery storage. Like material leak, there will be a containment basin.
The problem is if there's a battery leak, I'm not too worried because there is a containment platform. If there's a battery fire, you're talking about a phosphate fire. And it burns so hot that the general instructions to the fire department is stand back and let it burn out.
On that note, there's a fire suppression system built in, whether it's gas or foam, they all come with it.
Okay.
So again, please note that that is.
I will leave it on the planning board list, but you can certainly explain that to them.
I will. I have plenty of experience.
Okay.
Sure.
And there were questions about the curve numbers used by the applicants and accepted by TNB. We've asked them to in this latest plan to reconsider all those numbers. And we have also asked them to consider conditions of frozen ground, which is a higher curve number. It's kind of a way of forcing them to use a higher curve number. So they are going to do that, and we will get new calculations. And certainly we have a lot of frozen ground in a lot of winters, so it's reasonable. Okay. And questions about the acceptance of the project into the SMART program. That, again, it's a tax and incentive program, isn't a wetlands related program. We have no say over the SMART program. If they didn't get it, I guess they would lose some of the funding they're counting on. So
all of it.
You can hope they didn't get it. Okay. Paul Snowbeck wrote us a letter about the property frontage. There's a culvert, which is not on the maps, which goes under the road from all the area above, which is a pretty big runoff area, and into the parcel. And he was concerned about that. When you look at it, it comes into, I mapped it here.
All right, he's got control.
Oh, okay.
I can stop sharing. I can, well, where?
Yeah, it comes into the southwest corner. So that's a heavily vegetated corner it's the opposite corner from the driveway. I don't think that it's significant, but we did want to bring it to your attention and ask for it to be put on the maps. Nick said he would add it to the maps.
Is it crossing Glendale?
It crosses Glendale from the upper side to the lower side.
Send an email about this. It may be added, but I will bring up you said a specific email about this comment.
Yeah.
And we will make sure to address it.
Okay. And probably in the maintenance, it should be mentioned for clearing, because if it gets clogged, then one of my concerns, I don't think it's going to change anything on the parcel because it goes into heavily vegetated area that's not going to be disturbed. But if it were to overflow the road, it could ice up, and that could cause issues with trucks coming in, which might be carrying something dangerous. So just to maybe include having that checked on a regular basis, especially in winter.
Is it like a biannual? I mean, this is a very easy ask to add to the O&M.
Okay. Yeah, I think in the fall and winter are the issues. It's leaves that usually clog these things.
Yes, I am accepting. I will make that.
Okay. Okay, there is an existing business being run on the parcel. It's caused a lot of damage to where wetlands were, or at least were delineated. And there are questions about how that business will continue, or where it will continue, where they'll put the trucks. Is he planning on continuing it?
I can't speak on behalf, but to clarify what you just said, is it the Commission's opinion that since the landowner purchased the property in 2021, he has adversely affected wetlands?
Yes.
Okay.
Mainly in that area behind the barn there, to the east of the barn. If you look in 2021 at the orthos, they're all green, and there's a little area there.
West of the barn.
To the east of the barn.
East of the barn where it's flat. Oh.
Right where that area
right
is?
There, right where the arrows.
When in 21, essentially that was the cleared area. Now, if you look on an ortho above, there are all these big arms of truck parking and stacks of construction stuff and that sort of thing. It's not really relevant to Rory because it's the owner's responsibility, but it is relevant to the fact that it's an issue that we have to clean up before we could possibly clear the project. I think
it's right here. Wanted to ask him.
Well, I have it slated for next week because next week we're going to talk about the farm and all that other stuff. So it makes more sense to deal with it then.
It's not next week.
I mean, next meeting. I'm sorry, not next week. Jonathan, did you want to say anything?
you have questions, I'm more than happy to answer.
Are you planning on continuing the landscaping operation?
We use the trucks to improve the property, so I get home, I work on hours. I use trucks around.
Well, this is going to cover most of your property.
I still allowed to move around my house and whatnot.
Yeah. I mean, the question is just where and how, you know, how will you get the trucks where you need them to go without going on the wetlands, that sort of question. And then what? So you'd use the gravel driveway and go over to where that turnaround is and then drive out? And where would you store them? The trucks?
I'm not allowed to store them on site if I'm using
Not
them.
on this site. Not within that chain link fence.
No, it won't be.
Okay. They have to be stored not in the wetlands. You now have a good map of your wetlands, so you have to find a place that's not wetlands to store
On
them.
the right, looking at Smarn right here to the right, is that considered wetlands right there?
That's going to be inside the limit of work. So your agriculture can be in there, but your landscaping trucks can't be.
So as long as it's a farm plated vehicle, it's fine, correct?
Judy, this area is outside the limit of work.
Is it?
This is, yeah, it's outside the.
Okay.
See the dark line?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, if you stay within that area and not over the limit of work.
There where Rory's cursor is.
In this area.
Yes. But right now your trucks are way out of that area. They're way over there where the arrays are going to be. Okay. That answers some of the questions. Okay.
Driveway. Yeah, so above that. It's in there now.
And we'll talk later about the
Up here.
current degradation part,
Down.
because I think that's a whole separate thing.
Yes.
Okay, the land that's within wetlands that you're now parking on.
I didn't know
That's
where we were parking.
It's considered an intrusion, and so therefore it's a violation.
So you know that.
And so we have to resolve that.
Yep.
That's a separate process between us and the owner as opposed to
It is.
Rory. It's just that we can't approve a project on a parcel that has violations. So before the project gets built, we're going to have to resolve that.
Also,
Okay. And the lastly is Gina Stabilio, who has written us lots of letters. One is a lot of documentation about the current business. Most of that went to the Hampden inspector, who said it wasn't relevant, I guess.
Necessarily agree, but.
Yeah, I don't agree with all of that, but some of it. Most of it, a lot of it had to do with noise from the trucks and that sort of thing.
It was my mom who actually filed the complaint.
Okay, we don't have any say over any of that, but we do over the wetland violation part, so. Next meeting, we will also discuss the definition of land in agricultural use, because both the project proposal, the project proposal refers to the whole farm as being a farm. As far as taxes and the SMART program and lots of other things, it is a farm. But according to DEP, the rules are very distinct and much, much, much tighter. I've written out an explanation of it. I'll give one to you and one to Jonathan. But basically, it requires that, it says that land in agricultural use is only what is presently and currently in use, in agricultural use for commercial purposes. So you have to prove that you're intending at least to make some money. And it doesn't apply to a parcel. It applies only to those areas that are specifically being used for the agriculture. So it would apply, for instance, to the barn, to wherever you're currently grazing them. That's hard to figure out. And to areas like that. Otherwise, it doesn't apply, like Nick referred to it in the riverfront analysis, to being allowed intrusions into the riverfront if you're a farm. But that part of the riverfront is not used for agricultural work. So it's not exempt.
Got it.
Doesn't change a whole lot, but it's important.
Agreed.
Okay. Gina also sent a letter about noise generated by the equipment itself. We got another letter about, I couldn't find it, so I don't know whose name it's under.
I don't know who's made.
But we have referred all of that to the planning board very specifically.
Great.
The echo is distinct. I don't think that under normal rules, like so far, I haven't heard any complaints from the one on Potash, for instance. So I think it has a lot to do with the fact that that particular valley bowl is very echoic.
That's how you build a city.
And so there might be some, I mean, we'll let the planning board deal with it, but there might be something that you can do in terms of plantings or something that would cut that echo.
Whatever is inappropriate, we will have it. But again, the newer technology is better than what was installed, say, even 3 years ago.
Okay.
And I have a video if you ever want to. It is much quieter than I thought it would.
All right. We are allowed to limit noise that might disturb local animal, wildlife habitat. We did have a habitat evaluation completed, and the wildlife specialist opined that it wouldn't be loud enough to disturb them. I'm going to ask for a second opinion from DEP on that.
Go anyways.
But at this point, the official decision from the habitat evaluation is there are some animals there. It's not a critical corridor because the riverfront is a critical corridor, and that can't be changed no matter what. But the wildlife evaluator's opinion was that there wasn't going to be enough noise and there weren't significant animals at risk. There aren't any animals of special concern that have been identified there. I know that at the beginning of this project, a turtle was found in the driveway. And that has been officially reported, but it won't get included in maps until maybe 3 to 5 years. So right now it's not natural heritage and it's not considered an area of special concern. There's a lot size and setback question. I think we've discussed that enough. There was a letter of comments on stormwater solicited from Mr. Garabedian. Ty and Bond rejected to include those considerations. We have asked them to reconsider all of the other opinions, and specifically Mr. Weiner's, but all of the ones that were submitted. And I think I missed one, but I couldn't track it down. Are there any other questions? Yes.
I have just a question on this sound decibel. Has that been predicted that it's going to level? Is there, appreciable effect on wildlife? So
the project's allowed to go 10 decibels above the current ambient sound level. They have taken sound level measurements currently, which are in the 50s. So if it went into the 60s, I think we could easily make a case that it was too loud. Unfortunately, it's like buffers. You can only enforce buffer rules after the buffer gets intruded on. You know, if sediment flows into a buffer, then we can enforce it. But as a projection, we can't. It's one of those weird things.
decibel.
Yeah.
Based on the batteries and everything. Can they get the
I asked Ty and Bond if they could take a decibel measure for us, and they declined. They don't feel equipped to do that. So the most we could do is you could take decibel levels in your yard now. And you could take them again after the project. If there are enough of them, I think DEP would probably consider them.
They'll be long gone.
Hmm?
I said, they'll be long gone and we'll be left with the noise.
So can't they go to another solar array that's similar and be adjustable level from that one?
They could, they refused. I mean, we can only hire one consultant, and Ty and Bond is the most reliable one for most of these measures. You could hire a consultant, or you could do it yourself. You could just go over to Potash Lane and stand at the entrance and take a measure. Yeah.
I don't think though, that when the solar farm in Munson tried to bring up the noise issue, which is obnoxious, they were not allowed by their town board to do it themselves.
To take the measures themselves?
Exactly.
Huh, interesting.
Has to be professional.
They had to hire.
Well, I know that
To do that.
the Spilio sent a lot of information on available consultants about noise to the planning board. So I would tell that to the planning board and ask them to do something. They can hire, we're only allowed one, they're allowed a bunch. They have a lot more money, their planning board, okay?
About the noise, and I know this isn't your jurisdiction or anything like that, but basically what has to be done for pre-construction sound modeling. And what happens is an acoustic engineer comes in, they have all the specs for all the equipment, they basically replicate the project, and they're able to figure out how much noise is gonna come off this project. And then they can tell the developer, hey, it's too loud, here's what you can do to make it match law. But they have to have the ambient first. And I was told by the local gentleman who's an acoustic professional, he expected the noise level where I am, which is on Ames Road, to be about 25 to 30 ambient. And when batteries are included in the scenario, which they are, they measure that noise day and night. And they usually measure that noise at 3 a.m., which is probably the quietest. To have someone go out there put the sound meter might work, but you're not a professional. And I don't believe that there's been an ambient done on 530. I think what was submitted was another project with a hand and a sound meter.
Yeah, so you can see if you can get the planning board to do that.
I guess my other question, I have two other questions for you. One was about the fencing that's still on the riverfront on this project. Is that still considered a barrier to wildlife on the track? I know DEP was concerned about that.
Yeah, the fencing on the east side of the unnamed stream riverfront.
Yes.
It is an intrusion, yes.
That may have to be adjusted. My other question was, is there a way that we can possibly work together here and get this paperwork? I know Ty and Bond has their own schedule, but can the applicant maybe 24 to 48 hours before these meetings? Because I feel like we're always playing catch up.
Well, so are we.
It's very frustrating. Yeah.
We got a lot of this information yesterday morning.
Well, it's funny because, I read to you guys and you say you don't have anything. And then I come here and you already had it. And I can't.
Like I said.
We just got it.
7 items came in yesterday. And most of them relate to that list of extra things that we asked for. And I guarantee everybody's working as best as they can. And we could just postpone the meeting so you have more time. But the commission, 3 people on this commission are retiring at the end of June. So we're trying to move forward. And in fact, we have 10 days to provide materials. We've tried very hard to provide them within 2 or 3 days, but that's about the best we can do. If they come in on a Friday, Bonnie comes in on Monday, she sends them out.
But I very rarely do I get them. This is like the second time now that I haven't gotten something in time for a meeting. I realize that we should have an opportunity to review it too. It would have been nice to have that paperwork when we walked in here today. I'm
Yeah.
not talking about your draft decisions that you had on the table with the sign-in sheet. I'm talking about the time bond stuff,
That came in yesterday.
but I never got it. And I.
We have 10 days to give it to you.
We actually have, I mean, we've tried to be very nice and get it to you as quickly
It
as we
probably came in
can.
after I was gone.
But it came in after Bonnie was already gone.
Uh-huh.
And I presume you sent it out this morning.
My computer just now got reconnected. It hasn't been connected in a couple of weeks, my laptop, so I can't do any work from home after hours. I
So
can now.
we may have spoiled you by responding faster before, but they changed our commission computer. And
Fair.
we've been tied up by that.
Say 10 days, I understand that's your legal right, but
Yeah, but we haven't used that. You know, we haven't used that during this entire time.
yes.
We have gotten it to you as quickly as we can. That's all I can say. And I can say that I spent all night and all today reviewing those papers because that's when we got them. That's what happens. The last time I spent a week. Essentially, as long as I could stay up doing it. So just has to get done. Okay, there are two other things I really wanted to look at. I wanted to take a closer look at those papers that just came in, but it's now 8 o'clock. So instead, I would rather review the proposed conditions. I think those were at the front, right?
These.
I can't find my copy. I don't know what I did with it.
Ones I can't read.
Yeah, I know. I could not get this to
Are you
print.
talking about this thing? Your draft
Oh,
J?
yeah,
Draft J?
yeah. Somehow it got printed extra small.
It did. I tried and tried and tried.
Okay.
You need this one?
No, I have 4 copies that are normal size that I printed myself. You would not believe what I spent on printing. Rory, you got one, right?
But I have it open in front of me.
Okay. So, and did they get one?
They got the teeny.
They got the teeny.
Yeah, it's all right. I'm okay.
All right.
I can.
It's probably a flaw on the new computer.
Want me to project it for you?
Yes, could you? Okay, I just want to quickly go over these, just so you know what's there in general. And everybody can consider them.
That's all right. I'm okay. I can.
Rory got them this morning. He hasn't had time to look at them either. Okay, there's a narrative at the beginning, which basically talks about the rules that all of this falls under and what those rules are.
I'm gonna give this to her. You don't want them.
So I won't read them all to you. Anybody that needs these can send an email to Bonnie and she will send them out. And I will try to fix them on her computer before you get a copy because the way they were printing was so tiny, it's hard to read. Okay, so I've already talked about the first page. Most of the ones in the first section are things that are general conditions that have to do with where they can put materials that are stacked up, where they can drive, what they have to tell people who are working for them, the rules they have to post. Any changes that are made have to come in with the plan. And all the other permits that they should look into and make sure they do or don't need them. We can direct them to do that. And that includes the Army Corps of Engineers, the DEP, other permits, the NPDES, and what's called a SWIP, a Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan. We've asked Planning Board to ask them for a PNF, which is a project notification form, which goes to the State Historical Commission. We had somebody send us 2 documents that were quite a while back when they were putting in the power line that said in that neighborhood, and they won't tell you because they don't want you to go there and start digging up things that might be there. But in that neighborhood, they thought there might be archaeological items. I guess they dug up some at that power line point. And so there's a permit, a PNF. Basically, they submit a map of where their project's going to be, and the historical commission said, we're interested, we're not interested. So they can do that. Typically for us, it goes through natural heritage, which there isn't on this project. So we've asked the planning board to do it instead. They have equal jurisdiction. It can be anybody that grants a permit that asks for the PNF. Okay. And then, as I stated, there's all these other reviews, the planning board, the Board of Health, the Zoning Board of Appeals, the Select Board, and other people get involved later. Okay. And there's also a lot of rules about where and how they can dispose of things and where they can discharge things to. So if they're digging and they run into groundwater, there's rules about that. They have to put it in a special, like a swimming pool, a plastic swimming pool, essentially, where it settles so that there's no sediment in it. And then they could drain it to the stormwater system or to an outside of wetlands area where it could filter back to the wetlands. They can't dump anything directly in the wetlands. So that's some of the conditions here that are relevant. There's a lot of, so that's the general rules. They're also asked not to use any rock salt, sodium chloride, calcium chloride, or fertilizers or pesticides within the project. Now, if Jonathan decides to use them on the farm part of his property outside the chain link fence, that's different, but not within. Okay. Okay. The first rule under pre-construction is a request to test the runoff water from the panels for all of the currently state measured PFAS chemicals. There are 6 of them. It's something they can directly request from a water company. And to retest at particular intervals of time, because there could be breakdown. We want to make sure PFAS isn't used in most of the current panels, but it is sometimes used in the coating on the outside of the panels to keep the snow sliding off. It's a slippery component. So up until recently, they have used it. I'm suspecting by the time this is built, it will be prohibited, but I still have put in a condition to test the water. And if they were to get a notice of guarantee from the panel company, then they wouldn't have to do that. The panel company may have to test by then. Okay. And again, before they get a certificate of compliance, closing out their project, they have to test a final test. Okay, then there are a lot of conditions for pre-activity meetings. This is a meeting of all their contractors and representatives of the town and of the commission to make sure that everybody involved understands all the rules. And there's a lot of them. I would say, I haven't totaled these up because each section is numbered separately, but I think it's about 60. Then there's rules about the installation of erosion controls, which is the very first thing. After the marking of the limit of work and the marking of the wetlands, the next thing is the erosion control, and those have to be inspected by the town as well before they do anything else. Then there's rules about the clearing of vegetation and where they can and can't do it, and what they can do with the materials that they take off. There's rules about having erosion control materials immediately available So in the case of a storm, they could be deployed if necessary. They're required to have an independent environmental professional who will check all of as well as the commission, who will be there essentially on site during all of the construction to check the erosion barriers, the leakage of the trucks, if there's any, check for oil leaks and all that sort of thing. And put in reports. That's pretty standard.
Just like a standard procedure, because again, I may or may not be involved in the construction. There's a comment about how I have to identify you, you have 48 hours to inspect the silt fence. Do we give you a little note saying, hi, I'm going to do this on X day, so you have a 2-day period?
Now, you install the fence, then you email us and say it's installed, come look at it. And very often I would say that inspection happens at the same time as the pre-activity meeting. So we go up there to look at the erosion stuff. We also meet the environmental monitor and the contractor and get all that done together. Yeah, very much we use emails. Lots of emails. And by the way, I don't hear very well on phones from construction sites when people are talking into with the machine and back.
You and me both.
Okay. And then there's installation of barriers and fencing, and they're required to look for nests, burrows, things like that, where animals might require being moved so they won't get trapped inside the fence. And there's a bonding. We've asked for bonding, which is pretty standard on big projects. We can't bond the whole project. Once again, we can only bond the wetland part, but we can ask for a bond for all of the, for any kinds of damage and restoration to the wetlands that could be caused by the project. And they should be working on that estimate now. The planning board will probably get a separate bond. And then basically what happens is a bond gets set with the treasurer, put into an escrow account essentially. And it stays there in the case of anything that has to get funded.
Does that bond include wells?
The bonding we would have no, but the bonding that the planning board does, yes, it can. It can include, I don't know all the planning board rules. I have 6 sheets of them, but they have a larger breadth of what they can bond for than we can.
Yeah. There's a bunch of things that have to get bonded by different committees. There's even a bond they have to pay to decommission 25 or 30 years. There's multiple ones that he has to put up money on.
Yeah.
Just backing up for a second with fire suppression, for example. Everyone's in agreement that 30,000 gallons of water can solve that problem. So sometime in the future, I suspect our fire department may be using some kind of suppressant foams.
Yeah, that would cause damage to the wetlands. There's no getting around it. And they would be responsible for that damage. That would come out of the bond.
That would be your purview rather than.
However, we have asked separately for the fire chief to review all of these plans and for the planning board to pay attention to that. Both in regard to the roads, because even though, we've quote permitted the roads, as you've noted, we don't have a lot of control over some things about the roads. Also about the turnarounds and whether they're big enough to do without going into the wetlands, that sort of thing. They have these maps now, they know where the wetlands are and they can require those be bigger or whatever. And we've asked them specifically to review fire dangers and safety. Like for instance, if a fire department had to go in and turn around in those little turnarounds, could they do it? It's a question that we don't have control over. But given that that the roads are limited, they don't go all the way around the project. There's a question to be answered about whether they could access all the critical parts. The fire is likely to be in a battery or in the transformer or something like that. They're not like solar panels don't catch on fire. But access is an issue, I think.
I just wanted the commission to know that I have spoken to the fire chief on several occasions, and I have assured him that I personally was the one walking him through fire safety. As I've done with other fire chiefs, I've given him recommendations. He may speak to other fire chiefs in different towns that I work with to get an understanding of what this is. That's the only thing on it.
If, in case you don't know it, the big substation off of Allen Street has a tank in the front driveway, much as this is. And the town and the fire department approved that tank. And again, they're not there to fight the whole fire, they're there to assist.
So, and we can hold, for 2 calendar years, certain portion of that bond, in case after everything's finished, there's still a problem. Typically, the stormwater issues come up during construction, before the ground is all stabilized. There's a big storm and some netting or some overspray or something they did to grow grass washes away and causes huge sedimentation. Some of the videos of that are pretty scary. So that will be bonded. All right. And they have to submit revised plans of all the changes that were made, like by the planning board, and photographs of the conditions that are there. Part of that is for being able to figure out things like violations if somebody did do that, or if trucks went onto the wetlands while they were doing construction, that would be a violation that would have to get mitigated. Okay, then during construction, there are regular progress reports. I've currently chosen twice a month, but that's absolutely, it's in the planning board reference that we are willing to work that out with them so that it's coordinated. The operations are required to be phased. You heard us talking about the phases. So they cannot just go and cut all the trees in the project at once and then grade all the land and bulldoze everything. They have to do it in subsections that are considered manageable in terms of erosion and stormwater. So the project has to be broken into phases. And as I mentioned, the phase that comes before that even will be phase 0 and has to do with the erosion barriers and all of those other qualifications. There's a lot of conditions that have to do with emergency notifications and making sure that those kinds of things are posted everywhere so that people who come to the site and see an issue can report it and know which numbers to call and what the rules are. There's specific stormwater management rules about runoff and where it can go. Basically, we've made the condition that nothing can run outside that jurisdictional line or into the wetlands. So if it does, it's a violation. At the very least, it will cost them a lot of money. Okay. And we've asked for vegetated buffers or filter strips to be maintained between the wetland resource areas and all of the project, essentially. Post-construction, we've made a condition about noise emission exceeding 10 decibels because that's what we're allowed to include. And disturbed areas being stabilized very fast. Typically within 14 days and then permanently stabilized within a couple of months. There's a lot of project termination rules about what they have to do at the end with the as-built plans and all that sort of thing. There's extended monitoring and reporting. So there's monitoring and reporting that goes on during construction, but also there are perpetual requirements that continue for the life of the project and require regular reporting to the commission of the conditions on the site. And there's rules about the riverfront restoration and wetland replication, which is the mitigation part of the project. And lastly, there are other conditions in perpetuity that even get included on the deed. And so if the deed passes from one person to another, those conditions go with it. They're essentially attached to the deed. So we have copies of this. It is draft. The commission members may change it. Planning board may request changes. They will get copies, and Bonnie will send anybody that wants a copy these copies. I have 2 extra copies here if anybody wants them. And you can also get copies of the referral letter to the planning board of all the issues.
I want a copy because I can't.
Yeah, I think I can tell you how to fix that. Okay. Any other last questions before we go to the next one? Yeah.
I just have one question about the battery storage. There was a moratorium passed at the town meeting. Does that affect this?
For battery storage?
Yeah.
No, that one, no, it wasn't passed, unfortunately. It was, I think they asked for no action.
There's no action. I think there.
The no action unanimously passed.
That means they passed no action. They passed doing nothing. Yeah. But I should say also that battery storage refers to battery storage facilities. So it's not the battery storage that would be here where they have batteries that even out their delivery to the electrical system. It's a storage that the electrical company has itself that they put on a separate parcel.
Has nothing to do.
It has nothing to do with this, but it is important. They are huge. They are noisy. Yeah. They are.
Yeah.
That's going to be the next thing you're going to have to.
That is going to be on either the fall or the spring meeting one, I think.
Again.
Usually the ones that get no action is because they don't think the wording is right to get it past the state legal conditions. So they want to reword it and present it again, and they can't change it in the meeting. So they do no action and they present it at another meeting. But it is important. Anything else? I thank you all for being very, very patient. And we will see you on the 26th. Oh, I continue the hearing to the 26th. 25th. Gosh, 25th.
You got to make.
All those in favor?
Aye, to continue.
No? Okay.
All set?
It's unanimous. Yep. Okay, so I still have one copy of the conditions if anybody wants them.